The stars of human space were quiet. Too quiet. From the darkness beyond the outer rim, a fleet of alien warships moved like a steel storm. Hundreds of vessels, sleek, glowing with blue energy, cut through the black sea of space. At the center of the formation was the Zurian Dominion's flagship, Varric's Pride. It was the size of a small moon, its hull layered with silver armor and golden runes of conquest. Commander Varric stood on the bridge, tall and proud. His pale green skin shimmered under the command lights. His soldiers bowed as he passed. He looked out the viewing glass where a single blue planet hung before them. Their scanners had labeled it Ardent 9, a forgotten human colony world. "Empty world," said his second officer. "No signals. No defense grid. A perfect target." Varric smiled, a slow, cruel smile. "Human space," he said. "At last, the Dominion expands into their territory. Let them see our power." But the sensors on the bridge flickered for a moment. Just a small glitch. The communication officer adjusted the screen and frowned. "There's something odd, Commander. A transmission, very weak, repeating every 7 seconds." Varric waved a hand. "A beacon, maybe. Play it." The speakers crackled, and a low human voice filled the bridge. The sound was broken, but the message was clear. "Turn back." The bridge went silent. Only the hum of the ship's engines could be heard. A few of the younger crew members exchanged uneasy looks. One of them whispered, "It's human language, sir. Should we respond?" Varric chuckled. "A ghost signal from an abandoned world? Let them try to scare us. Prepare the landing force." The fleet pressed forward. As they entered orbit, their scanners began to fail again. Small errors at first, then full blackouts. Ships lost connection for seconds, then minutes. The stars themselves seemed to flicker. "Gravitational interference?" asked the science officer. "No, sir," came the reply. "Something is jamming us." Varric slammed a clawed hand on the console. "Nothing can jam Dominion tech. Nothing." Still, deep inside, he felt something cold. Not fear, he told himself, but something close. The first landing craft descended into the atmosphere of Ardent 9. Through the thick clouds, they saw a world of dust and silence. Cities lay empty. Buildings stood tall but lifeless. Roads were still marked by human vehicles, some overturned, some with doors open as if the people had vanished mid-step. "Report," Varric ordered through comms. The ground team spoke back. "Sir, there are signs of human life. But old, maybe years old. No corpses. None. Commander, it's as if they just disappeared." Varric turned away from the screen, unimpressed. "Search the capital city. Humans love to hide underground." As his soldiers moved through the ghost city, their footsteps echoed in the empty streets. One soldier paused near a wall and brushed away the dust. There, scratched into the metal, were human letters. He called his team. It read, "We see you." The soldier swallowed hard. "Commander, this message, it looks recent." "Don't be foolish," Varric replied. "Humans are too weak to face us. Continue your sweep." But as the team moved deeper into the city, the lights began to flicker. Street lamps blinked on and off, one by one, like eyes opening in the dark. A low hum started beneath the ground, deep and mechanical, growing louder each second. "Sir," one voice said over the radio, "we're detecting power readings below the city. Massive readings. Could be weapons." Before Varric could answer, the signal cut out. Static filled the bridge. "Try again," he barked. "Commander, their channel is dead." "What do you mean dead?" "Their signal just vanished." Then, the viewing glass of the flagship shimmered. From orbit, they could see lines of blue light crawling across the planet's surface, forming strange symbols and circles. The lines connected, then flared bright white. One of the officers shouted, "Unknown energy spike from the planet. Power level rising fast." Varric gritted his teeth. "Raise shields." Too late. A column of light erupted from the planet, piercing the void. It tore through one of the nearby frigates, cutting it in half. The explosion painted the stars in orange fire. The bridge shook. Alarms blared. "What was that?" shouted the second officer. "Unknown weapon, sir. Not in our database." Through the roaring noise, another transmission came through. Clear, sharp, and human. "You should have stayed home." The message repeated once, twice, then stopped. Silence again. Varric stared at the ruined frigate drifting in flames. His pride was gone from his eyes, replaced by something else, something close to dread. He turned to his officers. "Pull the fleet back. Now." But from the darkness beyond Ardent 9, something moved. A faint shadow against the stars. Dozens of shapes, silent, cold, and perfectly hidden, slid into formation. They weren't Zurian. They weren't registered on any scanner. They were human warships, and they had been waiting. The smoke of the destroyed frigate still burned across the stars when Commander Varric's ship steadied itself. His officers were shouting over each other, reports, signals, warnings, but most of them meant nothing. Every scanner showed chaos. "Commander, our sensors are blind." Communications with the ground team, still lost. "Unknown ships detected in orbit." Varric raised one hand for silence. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Send 3 drop squads to the surface. I want eyes on that city. I want to know what killed my men." The orders were followed instantly. Small landing craft broke away from the flagship and entered the planet's atmosphere, cutting through thick gray clouds. Static danced across their controls. Lightning flashed below them, white and silent. The city appeared beneath them. Silent towers, broken bridges, and wide streets filled with dust. Nothing moved. Not even the wind. They landed near the center of the capital. "Alpha Team deployed," said Captain Kareth over the comm. His boots hit the ground with a metallic thud. "The air is breathable. Radiation normal. But something feels wrong here." Rows of buildings surrounded them. Their windows were shattered, but light still flickered inside as if the power never failed. Machines hummed somewhere deep below. The whole place felt alive, yet empty. "Split into pairs," Kareth ordered. "Record everything." The soldiers moved carefully, rifles ready. Every echo sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like it could move. One of the soldiers, Rin, stopped beside an overturned ground vehicle. He pointed his scanner at it. "Commander, this car's engine is still warm." Varric's voice came through the comms, cold and sharp. "That's impossible. There's no human life detected." "I'm telling you, sir. Someone was here. Maybe minutes ago." They continued forward, their lights sweeping across the road. On a nearby wall, words were burned into the metal, clearly by heat, not carved. "Still watching." Rin stepped back. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Kareth nodded. His throat was dry. "Mark it. We'll show the commander." Far away, in orbit, Varric watched the live feed. His eyes narrowed. These messages. Humans didn't run. They're hiding. This is a trap. Suddenly, the signal from Alpha Team blurred. "Commander, something's static." Then nothing. "Try again." Varric barked. "Get me that feed back." Signal lost. "Commander. Ground interference increasing." Varric slammed his fist into the console. "Send Bravo Team. Now." On the surface, Bravo Team landed near what seemed to be a human control center. The building was round, made of dark steel, with a single door half open. Captain Jurek stepped inside, his flashlight cutting through the dust. Inside were chairs, screens, and papers scattered everywhere. One screen was still glowing, faintly. He approached and wiped off the dust. The words on the display were simple. "Automated defense system. Active." He frowned. Automated? After all these years? Suddenly, the floor vibrated. A low hum started below their feet, deep and powerful. Outside, the air shimmered. "Bravo Team to command." Jurek shouted. "Something's powering up. We're reading." A beam of white light erupted from the ground, hitting one of the troop transports. The explosion threw fire into the sky. "Evacuate! Evacuate!" Screams filled the comms. Then silence again. On the flagship, Alarms blared. Commander, multiple energy spikes detected across the surface. How many? Dozens? No, hundreds. They're everywhere. Varroc's jaw tightened. Pull all teams back to orbit. Prepare for combat. But as his ship began to ascend, the stars flickered again. The shadows around the planet thickened, and his navigation screen went dark. Commander, we're surrounded. By what? Unidentified contacts, approaching fast. The tactical officer tried to get a visual. The screen cleared, and then they saw them. Hundreds of black ships, small and sleek, were rising from beneath the planet's surface. No lights, no signals, no heat signatures, just cold steel gliding silently through the air. Their hulls were matte black, almost invisible against space. Varroc whispered, "How long have they been hiding here?" The ships moved in formation, perfectly synchronized. No communication. No noise. Then, every human ship's weapon systems lit up at once. "Commander, they've locked onto us. Raise shields. Fire back." The first volley hit. Blue plasma tore through the Zurian fleet's forward line. Ships exploded like glass under pressure. Debris rained down into the planet's atmosphere. On the bridge, Varroc gripped the edge of the console, his teeth clenched. They're not fighting like pirates or colonists. They're fighting like soldiers. His science officer turned pale. "Sir, their ships are old, very old. Designs from the early human wars, but modified. They must have hidden them underground for decades." Varroc stared at the battlefield, realization slowly spreading across his face. They knew someone would come. As another blast shook the bridge, the comms flickered for a moment. A new signal appeared. Human again. Calm, confident, terrifying. "We told you to turn back." The transmission ended, and then the human fleet opened fire. The stars above ardent. 9 burned red. The once mighty Zurian fleet drifted in chaos, engines flickering, comms filled with static and screams. What had begun as a proud invasion was now a fight for survival. Commander Varroc stood in the center of the flagship's bridge, staring at the holographic battle map. Human ships moved across it like predators. Silent, coordinated, efficient. The Zurians fired blindly into the dark, but the enemy always vanished before their shots landed. "Status report," he barked. "Shields at 30%. We've lost 12 ships in the last 5 minutes. Communications. Unstable, sir. They're jamming every frequency." Varroc's claws tightened around the console. "Jamming? How? No one can jam Dominion tech." The science officer hesitated. "Commander, they're not jamming us. They're inside our systems." Varroc turned sharply. "Inside? Explain." "Our systems are being overridden. Codes rewritten faster than we can track them." Before Varroc could respond, every light on the bridge flickered. A low, cold voice echoed from the speakers. "You wanted our stars. Now you'll see our ghosts." The crew froze. The voice was human. Without emotion. "Cut that transmission," Varroc ordered. But the lights dimmed again, and the holographic battle map changed. The Zurian ships were replaced by human warship icons, one for every Dominion vessel destroyed. Then, one by one, more human ships appeared, surrounding them completely. "They're mocking us," whispered the tactical officer. Varroc gritted his teeth. "Prepare the fleet for full counterattack. Target all heat signatures and fire on my command." The Zurian fleet unleashed a storm of plasma fire into the void. Blue light tore across space, but nothing hit. The human ships vanished behind reflective shields, reappearing seconds later to strike from different angles. The Varroc's pride shook violently. "Direct hit to our aft engines. Deploy repair drones." From the bridge window, Varroc could see one of his destroyers break apart, split cleanly in two. No explosion, just silence, like something had sliced it open. "Commander!" cried a voice over comms. "It's not just ships, they're using drones. Thousands of them." On the tactical display, a swarm of red dots appeared. Tiny, fast, and unstoppable. They cut through shields, sliced through hulls, and disabled weapons before detonating. One by one, the proud Zurian vessels turned into drifting wrecks. Far below, on the surface of Ardent 9, Captain Kareth, the only surviving officer from the landing team, hid inside a collapsed building. Smoke and dust filled the air. He had seen the humans. They weren't ghosts. They were soldiers, covered in dark armor, faces hidden behind helmets. Their movements were fast and silent, like machines. They carried weapons that didn't fire light or plasma, but soundless bursts that tore through metal and flesh alike. He had watched his squad vanish in seconds. Now he whispered into his broken comm, "Command, if you can hear me, the humans are here. They're not just defending. They're hunting us." No reply. Just static. He looked through the cracked window. Across the street, a figure stood in the shadows, tall, armored, holding a strange rifle. The soldier's visor glowed faint blue. Kareth froze. The human tilted its head slightly, as if studying him. Then, in perfect Zurian language, the soldier spoke. "You shouldn't have come." And then it was gone. In orbit, Varric watched another of his ships vanish from radar. The silence on the bridge was heavy. "How many left?" he asked quietly. The officer swallowed. "Less than half, Commander." Varric looked out the window. The planet below glowed faintly, lines of light moving like veins across its surface. It wasn't a colony anymore. It was a weapon. He turned to his second officer. "Open all channels. Every frequency." "Sir." "Do it." When the signal was ready, Varric spoke, his voice echoing across the void. "This is Commander Varric of the Zurian Dominion. We came seeking to conquer. Instead we found something else. To whoever commands this defense, I wish to negotiate." For a long moment, there was no reply. Then, the human voice returned. Cold. "Negotiate? You invaded our home. You killed our people. You ignored every warning." "We can coexist," Varric said. "We can offer peace." There was silence. Then the voice spoke again. "You talk of peace. But we remember the first time your kind came here. We remember what you did to our colonies. You left us no peace, only ashes." Varric frowned. "That war was centuries ago. We don't forget." Then the voice cut off. Suddenly, all human ships stopped firing. The space around Ardent 9 went quiet again. Varric's officers looked confused. "They're standing down?" Varric narrowed his eyes. "No. They're waiting." Then the navigation officer gasped. "Commander, new readings. Massive energy build up below the planet's surface." Varric turned to the window just as the planet began to glow. From its surface, hundreds of small lights rose, one after another, like stars lifting off the ground. It wasn't debris. It wasn't drones. It was more ships. Old, silent, but ready. Human reinforcements. The fleet had been hiding beneath Ardent 9 for years, waiting for this very day. As the lights filled the sky, Varric finally understood. The humans hadn't just survived. They had been preparing. And now, the echoes of an old war had awakened again. The sky above Ardent 9 turned white. Hundreds of glowing shapes rose through the clouds, forming into tight formations. The human fleet revealed itself at last. Old warships, black and heavy, moving like silent wolves among the stars. Some bore scars from past battles, some looked rebuilt from scrap, but all carried one message. They were ready to kill. On the Zurian flagship, alarms screamed. The control deck shook from nearby explosions. Commander Varric gripped the edge of the main console, his face pale with disbelief. "Count them," he shouted. The tactical officer's hands trembled over the scanner. "Impossible to read, Commander. At least 200 capital ships, maybe more." The science officer whispered, "They were buried, under the planet's crust. Hidden for decades." Varric growled. "No one hides a fleet that size without reason." Outside, the first wave of human ships broke formation. They moved in total silence. No radio chatter, no visible signals. Then, without warning, the attack began. Beams of red and gold energy tore through space. Human warships targeted each Zurian vessel with deadly accuracy. There was no random fire, No wasted shots. Each strike hit a critical point. Engines, reactors, weapon cores. One by one, Dominion ships exploded like dying suns. Return fire! Varric shouted. The Zurians fought back with all their power, their plasma bolts lighting the void. But the humans anticipated every move. They shifted position before each shot landed, counterstriking from the perfect angle. Within minutes, the Zurian fleet had lost formation. Panic spread across the comms. Sector 3 destroyed. Enemy boarding crafts incoming. They're everywhere, Commander. The humans were not just attacking, they were studying their every reaction. They moved like a machine, reading the battle in real time. Down on the planet's surface, the last Zurian troops tried to regroup. Captain Kareth, wounded but alive, crawled behind a broken wall. His helmet screen flickered with emergency alerts. He could hear the battle above, thunder in the sky. A deep roar came from the east. Through the dust, Kareth saw them. Human tanks, massive, rolling beasts of steel, emerging from underground hangars. Drones circled above them like metal birds. A single human soldier walked ahead of them, armor black as night. His voice echoed through a loudspeaker. Surrender and you will live. Kareth spat blood. We are Dominion. We don't surrender to prey. The human tilted his head slightly. Prey. Then the tanks opened fire. Explosions ripped across the ground, and Kareth's world turned white. In orbit, the Zurian flagship shook again. Another explosion tore through its left wing. Shields collapsing, shouted the officer. Varric turned to his crew. Hold the line. The Dominion never retreats. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was punishment. On the forward display, the image of a single human battleship appeared. Sleek, black, and enormous, it dwarfed the rest of the fleet. Its name flashed across the scanners in old Terran script. Erebus. A whisper passed through the bridge. The Erebus. The ghost ship. Every Zurian knew the name from stories told during the last war. The ship that vanished after wiping out an entire armada. Most thought it was destroyed. They were wrong. Open a channel to that vessel, Varric ordered. Static filled the air. Then, a voice came through. Calm, deep, human. Commander Varric, you crossed into human space. You brought war to our door. You thought we were gone. Varric stepped closer to the screen. You don't have to do this. Your species could have peace with us. The human captain replied. Peace is earned, Commander. You brought fire. Now you'll burn with it. Without another word, the Erebus fired. A single blast of energy sliced through the void, cutting straight through 3 Dominion battleships. The shockwave sent others spiraling into each other. It was not just power, it was precision, the result of centuries of preparation. Varric's voice shook with fury. All ships, target the Erebus. Destroy it. But when the Dominion fleet opened fire, the human vessel vanished, phased out of view, hidden behind advanced cloaking. Then, from behind them, it reappeared. And fired again. Minutes felt like hours. The battlefield became a graveyard of burning wrecks and drifting metal. The Zurian Dominion, proud and powerful, was being erased piece by piece. Varric's bridge flickered with dying lights. Send distress signals, he commanded. Call the nearest sector fleets. The communications officer hesitated. Sir, the humans are blocking our long-range transmitters. What? How? They're sending fake signals. To us. Our own code, our own fleet markings, but they're all false. Varric looked at the chaos outside. They learned from us. They studied us. Every move, every weakness. As he spoke, a massive shadow fell over the flagship. The Erebus had returned, hovering silently above them. Varric stood tall. If this is the end, we face it with honor. But no final message came from the humans. No speech. No victory cry. Only a final transmission pulsed across every Zurian channel. We defend what's ours. Always. And then, the sky turned red again as the Erebus fired its last shot. Space was burning. The once golden Zurian Dominion fleet now floated as broken metal and drifting flame. The stars around Arden Prime, the largest human colony in the system, were filled with wrecks, shattered engines, and the dying glow of war. Only 5 Dominion warships remained. 5 ships against an entire human fleet. On the bridge of the Varric's Pride, Commander Varric stood in silence. The ship's lights were dim, the air thick with smoke and burnt metal. His officers worked with trembling hands, patching what systems they could. The roar of explosions had finally faded, replaced by the quiet hum of death. The humans had stopped firing. For the first time in hours, there was stillness across the battlefield. The Dominion survivors floated helplessly among the wreckage, their engines dead, their weapons offline. Varric stared at the tactical screen. Everywhere he looked, he saw the same symbol, the human emblem. It blinked from the wrecks, from the transmissions, from the ships that surrounded him like wolves around a dying beast. His second officer spoke in a low, broken voice. "Commander, they've stopped attacking. Maybe they're offering mercy." Varric's jaw tightened. "Mercy?" he whispered. "No. They're deciding how to end us." On the other side of the battlefield, aboard the human flagship EREBUS, Captain Alara Kane stood before the viewing glass. Her face was calm, unreadable, lit by the soft glow of the Earth symbol on her command console. Around her, the bridge crew waited in silence. The communications officer turned. "Ma'am, the Zurians are broadcasting across all channels. They wish to surrender." Alara didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the burning wrecks drifting across the stars. "Ma'am?" the officer asked again. Finally, Alara spoke. Her voice was quiet but sharp as steel. "Put them through." The holographic screen flickered, showing Varric's face, tired, blood-stained, but still proud. "Human Commander," Varric began, his voice echoing across the link. "I am Commander Varric of the Zurian Dominion. We accept defeat. We ask for honorable surrender." Alara studied him for a long moment before answering. "You came into our home. You slaughtered our colonies. You called us prey." Varric lowered his head slightly. "Those were the orders of my High Council. I am only a soldier, and your soldiers killed ours." Varric took a slow breath. "War is war, but I have seen your strength. I understand now why the galaxy feared you. I only ask that you show the same mercy you claim to defend." For a moment, Alara's face softened, but only for a heartbeat. Then she turned away from the screen. "Mercy," she said quietly. "Where was your mercy when the colonies of Vega burned? When our children screamed as your bombs fell?" Varric had no answer. The silence between them felt endless. Finally, Alara gave her order. "Open all guns." Her crew hesitated. "Ma'am, they've surrendered." "They surrendered after killing billions," she said coldly. "They came to erase us. Now history will erase them." On the Varric's Pride, alarms began to sound again. The human fleet was moving. Varric's officers looked at him in panic. "Commander, they're charging weapons. Shields are down. We can't take another hit." Varric closed his eyes. So this is it. The first human shots tore through the void. The blast hit one Dominion cruiser, slicing it apart in seconds. Another followed, its engines exploding into a silent blue fire. The Varric's Pride shook violently as a shockwave hit its side. Consoles burst with sparks. "Commander, we can't." "Enough!" Varric shouted. "If this is our end, we face it standing." He turned toward the window, watching the massive human warship approach. It was the Erebus, silent and steady. Its hull reflected the light of the burning stars. A final message appeared on Varric's screen. "This is Captain Alara Kane of the Terran fleet. You wanted our world. Now you'll rest in it." Then the Erebus fired one last time. A beam of pure energy hit the Varric's Pride directly in its core. The explosion lit up the sky like a new sun. For a few seconds, even the stars disappeared in the light. When the fire faded, all that was left were ashes, metal fragments spinning slowly through the void. On the bridge of the Erebus, no one spoke. Alara watched the empty space where the Zurian flagship once floated. Her second officer finally broke the silence. "It's over, Captain." Alara's eyes stayed cold. "No, it's never over. Not until the galaxy remembers what happens when they cross into human space. She turned and walked away, leaving the window behind. Outside, the wrecks of the Dominion fleet drifted quietly around the glowing planet. No distress calls. No survivors. Only silence. The silence of victory. The silence of vengeance. The Dominion's capital world, Vraxis Prime, had never been silent before. For thousands of years, it had been a world of sound. Ships flying, factories roaring, the hum of the great empire that once ruled half the stars. Now it was a world of whispers. The skies above were filled with smoke and shattered satellites. The grand towers of the Dominion Council stood dark. The proud banners of the Zurians, once symbols of strength, now hung torn and colorless. Inside the high command chamber, only 5 council members remained. They stood around a flickering table that showed one cruel truth. Their empire was dying. The human fleet had reached the outer systems. Every day, another Dominion world fell. Every transmission ended the same way. Static and silence. Councillor Voran, his scales dull and cracked from age, slammed his fist on the table. Enough of this defeat. We are Zurians. We do not surrender to primitive creatures. Another councillor hissed sharply. Primitive? They destroyed our entire fleet in 3 days. They turned our weapons against us. Then we used the protocol, Voran growled. His eyes glowed faintly red. We activate Project Extinction. The room fell into silence. Even the youngest among them trembled. Project Extinction was banned for a reason, one whispered. It would destroy everything, even our own systems. Voran's voice was steady. Better death than humiliation. If we must fall, let the galaxy burn with us. He pressed his claw to the console. Prepare the weapon. Deep beneath the planet's surface, hidden in a vast underground vault, the Dominion's last weapon slept. A black sphere, the size of a city, pulsed with strange blue light. It was not just a bomb. It was a planet killer, designed to consume stars, turning systems into lifeless voids. The Zurians had built it long ago, a weapon of pride, never meant to be used. They called it the Extinction Core. As engineers hurried to power it up, the entire vault shook. Warning lights flared red. Energy rising, one shouted. The core is waking. Voran watched from the control deck, a cruel smile spreading across his face. When it reaches full charge, the humans will know true fear. But fear was already coming, not from the core, but from the stars. Hours later, the sky above Vraxis Prime filled with light. Dozens of massive human warships broke through orbit, their engines glowing like fire. At their center was the EREBUS, leading the final assault. On its bridge, Captain Alara Kane stood in silence, her expression unreadable. The holographic map showed the enemy planet below. Its energy readings were off the scale. Captain, her officer said, we're detecting massive power surges under the surface. It looks like some kind of weapon. Alara's eyes narrowed. So they're choosing death over defeat. She turned to her tactical officer. How long until it goes critical? 15 minutes at most. If that thing detonates, it'll wipe this system clean. Alara gave a small nod. Then we don't give them 15 minutes. The EREBUS and its fleet opened fire. Dozens of railguns and plasma beams tore through the planet's defense grid. Zurian anti-orbital cannons fired back, painting the sky with fire, but the human fleet moved with deadly precision. Each blast from the Erebus cut through shields like glass. Inside the Dominion vault, alarms screamed. The humans are here, an engineer shouted. They're targeting the energy conduits. Voran roared. Keep charging the core. Once it activates, they die with us. But the power readings spiked out of control. The core's light turned blinding white, and the ground began to crack. Commander, the system is unstable. Doesn't matter. Voran shouted. Let it burn. Above, on the EREBUS, the crew watched the planet tremble. Captain, the science officer said, their weapon is about to explode. If we stay, we're all dead. Alara didn't move. She stared at the glowing cracks spreading across the planet. Then she said quietly, no one else dies today. Not us. Not them. She turned toward her AI officer, a human-controlled defense interface, the only one authorized to override enemy systems. Can we hack their core? It's alien tech, Captain. But if we link our ship's drive, maybe. It's a risk. Do it, Ilara said. Tie our reactor to theirs. Drain its energy into us. If it kills the Erebus, so be it. The room fell silent. The crew hesitated, but no one disobeyed. The link was made. Power surged through the Erebus, shaking its hull, but the plan worked. Slowly, the light from the planet's core began to dim. Below, the Zurians realized too late. The humans, they're stealing the core. The energy that was meant to destroy them now flowed upward, into the human ship. Then, with one final pulse, the extinction core collapsed in on itself. A shockwave rolled across the sky. The surface of Vraxis Prime shattered into glowing ash. But the Erebus held firm. Scarred, burned, but alive. As the fires faded, the humans watched the Dominion's capital break apart. No one spoke. Ilara finally said, quietly, "They wanted extinction. They got it." Her second officer asked, "And us, Captain? What do we call this victory?" Ilara looked out into the dark, endless space. "Not victory," she said. "A warning." The camera zooms out, the once great Dominion world now nothing more than drifting dust among the stars. And in the silent void, one message echoed through every surviving signal across the galaxy. Never cross into human space. The war was over. The Dominion was gone. And space, for the first time in decades, was silent. The remains of the Zurian Empire floated as scattered dust among the stars. Their worlds, once bright and filled with pride, now drifted in ruins. No signals. No fleets. Only the ghosts of arrogance that had challenged humanity and lost. Above the ashes of Vraxis Prime, the Erebus drifted slowly through the fading light. Its once black hull was scarred with fire, half its engines dead, but it still moved, steady, alive, unbroken. On the bridge, Captain Ilara Kane stood before the viewing glass, watching the shattered planet below. Her crew was silent behind her, each face showing the same tired pride. They had survived the impossible. Ilara's voice was quiet. "Open a broadcast. All frequencies." The communications officer hesitated. "All frequencies, Captain? That includes the entire galactic network." Ilara gave a small nod. "Yes. Let every world hear this." The signal went out, a beam of light traveling faster than sound, faster than thought. It spread across the galactic grid, reaching every corner of the known universe. And then, her voice echoed across countless worlds. "This is Captain Ilara Kane of the Terran fleet. The war is over. The Dominion has fallen." Aliens across dozens of systems stopped what they were doing. On trade stations, in dark war rooms, in peaceful colonies, screens flickered to life. The face of a human appeared, her eyes cold, her voice calm. "For years, the galaxy called us savages. You said humans were dangerous, unpredictable, violent. You were right." Her words rolled through the stars like thunder. "You came into our systems. You burned our homes. You thought fear would break us. But fear only made us stronger. Now the Dominion is dust. Their fleets are gone. Their worlds, silent." She paused. The camera zoomed slightly closer to her face. "We do not seek to conquer. We do not desire your worlds. But if you cross into human space again..." She leaned forward, eyes sharp as a blade. "We will remind you what extinction looks like." The silence that followed stretched across galaxies. No one dared speak. Then, Ilara's tone softened. "We remember those who died defending our home, the colonies of Vega, the fallen of Arden Prime, the lost ships of the Terran fleet. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. Humanity does not forget." Behind her, the crew stood at attention. The screen faded to show the human emblem, a silver planet wrapped in a burning circle. Beneath it, one message appeared in white letters. "Humanity endures." Hours later, the Erebus drifted quietly through the wreckage of the battlefield. The stars glimmered faintly through the smoke. Ilara stood alone near the observation deck, watching fragments of light fall from the ruined planet below. Her reflection stared back, weary, but alive. Her second officer, Lieutenant Mira Solon, approached. "Captain, the fleet is ready to return home." "Orders." Ilara didn't answer at first. She kept watching the stars. Then she said softly, "Send them home. Tell Earth. We did what had to be done." Mira nodded and turned to leave, but paused. "Do you think they'll ever come again?" Ilara smiled faintly. "Maybe. There's always someone who forgets." She looked out once more at the endless dark. "But when they do, we'll be waiting." Far away, in the shadowed corners of the galaxy, other species listened to the message. Some in fear, some in awe. In the archives of the Galactic Council, a new entry appeared under Forbidden Zones. "Human space. Do not enter." Rumors began to spread. Of human ships that moved like ghosts, of soldiers who never surrendered, of a fleet that fought until the stars went dark. Children on alien worlds whispered about it. Soldiers spoke of it in quiet bars. And somewhere, deep in the void, the legend of Earth began to grow again. A legend not of monsters, but of survivors. Months later, the EREBUS entered orbit around Earth. The blue planet glowed beautifully beneath the ship, peaceful, alive, unaware of how close it had come to extinction. The crew looked down in silence, each remembering what they had fought for. Families. Oceans. The quiet of home. Ilara finally spoke, her voice filled with something rare. Peace. "We protected them. That's all that ever mattered." She turned away from the window, and the camera followed her as she walked down the silent corridor of the ship. Her footsteps echoed softly. Outside, the Earth turned slowly beneath her, the last light of humanity shining in the dark sea of stars. They came to conquer human space. Instead, they met their end. Now, across the galaxy, one truth remains. Never provoke the children of Earth. The screen fades to black. The sound of a heartbeat echoes once, twice, then silence. Text appears. Military medal, SCIFI Defenders. Humanity stands eternal.